Kyle Larson's performance this season has been nothing short of spectacular. But in my opinion, it is my next guest that's been the difference maker. He's the crew chief of that number 5 HendrickCars.com Camaro that Young Money pilots on the Cup circuit. He's Cliff Daniels, and he joins me here inside the wind tunnel. Cliff, first of all, thanks so much for carving out a little bit of time. I know, Monday through Friday, not even counting Saturday and Sunday, you're a pretty busy man. Let me jump right into it, though. What's this magic sauce between you and Larson?
Well, first, thanks for having me, and I appreciate the time to be on here. It's so hard to describe exactly what it is. I couldn't be more thankful to Mr. Hendrick for putting us together. Obviously, it was so bittersweet for our team to see Jimmy go off into retirement from the Cup Series that we didn't know what the future of our team was going to look like. And then when we found out that it was going to be with Kyle Larson behind the wheel, obviously that brought a bit of, excitement and a little bit of nerves for what the challenge was going to be. And Kyle has been nothing short of exceptional, all year. I think our team has really gelled around him. And, the way we communicate, the way we talk through a race, as we prepare for a race during the week, as we execute the race, all these races obviously all have a different spin or take on them. So we've got to experience a lot of different swings of our races throughout the year that it's just really helped us lay the groundwork for how we communicate and how we both, look for things to go execute that I think our approach is really kind of gelled into a very similar style and a very similar approach. So I don't, it's hard for me to say that there's any magic other than just really expanding on what we have. And it's certainly fun to be together.
Well, let's go back to when Mr. H came into the office and told you what was going to be on your plate for 2021, including this new kid that you were able to watch several years race for another team. I would have to imagine, Cliff, that you had to devise at least a battle plan for how to gel that chemistry and be able to come right out of the box the way you did. So what were were there techniques? Were there some things that you tried to establish that rapport that usually takes years to do it in just a couple of months?
Yeah, I think of two kind of key areas that we focused, or I even spent some time focused on. One was making sure to start the season, we laid the foundation of all the tracks that we went to, because I'm looking at the calendar in front of me. We hit a lot of different track types really within the first 2 months of the race season. So we hit, road courses, we hit speedways, we hit intermediates, and we hit short tracks all in the first 2 months, and including even Bristol dirt. So there's a lot that we got to experience together that the goal for the team really was to lay a good foundation of the setups that we had, make sure we were taking all the proper notes, good documentation of our approach pre-race, good documentation of our successes and shortcomings post-race to know how to clean up some things and to know how to expand on some things. And I think that really helped sustain us through the summer months when we had so many different track types that we experienced then. Looking back on some of those notes, and I know all this sounds so basic, but it really are those basic fundamentals that can make a big difference. And then the other thing for me is I spent a lot of time watching dirt racing more than I ever have in my entire life. I grew up, pavement racing, from go-karts and bandoleros, legends cars, late models, all pavement. The exposure I had to dirt racing was limited growing up, and during my college days, I had some friends that were into dirt racing, and I got some exposure there. But I spent a lot of time at the beginning of the season, and really all year, including even last night, watching Larson at Bulls Gap run the late model. I am signed up to more dirt, streaming services than I ever imagined I would be. My monthly bills have gone up from being subscribed to those. But learning him in the dirt environments, from how he talks, I got to know his sprint car crew chief, Paul Silva. I got to know his late model crew chief, Kevin Rumley. understanding what those guys see in Kyle, how they approach different racetracks for their race cars with him, helped me a lot to kind of understand how to keep refining my approach. And just the familiarity that I kind of gained with all that exposure to dirt racing of him, of his techniques on restarts, his techniques on passing, how he adjusts to a flat track or a bank track, a big or small track. That exposure and all the homework that I kind of did on my own of watching him during the week or whatever, again, helped me a lot to see and understand him really well. So those are the two big areas that we kind of focused on, to try to hit the ground running and to be a well-built team around Kyle Larson.
I think a lot of times it isn't acknowledged at the level that it should be. You're talking about communication, learning what your guy means, not what he says, and vice versa. You alluded to the fact, Cliff, that you're a track brat, grew up around the short tracks as your dad wheeled race cars. You did a little bit. So when did you finally decide that career driving a race car wasn't in the cards, but maybe, just maybe, a different career path would keep me in the sport?
I would say it was probably my sophomore or junior year in college, to be honest. There was kind of this collision of a couple different things happening at once. I had been full-time late model racing, I think for 3 or 4 years by that point. Pavement, NASCAR style, late model stock cars.
Mm-hmm.
Had been doing that for a handful of years. And the collision that happened was we always had a family funded and operated race team. My parents helped fund it through their business. We were fortunate to have a few sponsors help us out, but, nothing really to a high level of monetary contribution to our race team. We were running out of funds to be able to keep going, with our own family, budget and what our race team was. At the same time, the curriculum for me at UNC Charlotte was making more and more sense to applying the math, the science, the physics, dynamics, thermodynamics, materials, all the different classes that I was taking, to helping me understand the world that I was already living with race cars. And there's so many different, of course, engineering applications on race cars, that this big collision of realizing that I wasn't going to be able to keep racing full time. And holy smokes, my education actually makes sense to what I'm already doing, that I'm so passionate about doing. Of course, during the early 2000s and late 2000s, the engineering requirement for the sport kind of exploded. So I became aware that there could be potential opportunity for a career in racing, which I've been doing my whole life. I loved, had a passion for, never wanted to leave. That may not be driving. So that was a bit tough to swallow. I'm not going to lie. I had aspirations, but knowing that I could still be in the sport, have the same passion of competition and trying to make your race car go fast every week, that was still going to be fulfilling for me. So I guess that would have probably been, in the 2007, 2008 timeframe, that things really took off in this direction, for my career.
Well, I must confess, not having ever met you, but watching you evolve from afar and listening to the way you lead from the pit box, you should have been the Capcom at Apollo 11, because you are just calm, cool, and collected. How important is it for you to maintain that demeanor and keep your horizons broad enough that you see the big picture and can direct all of the pieces to produce the success or what you need to get done, Cliff?
A couple things to unpack there. By nature, when it comes to competition, I typically am very high strung, and I admit it. I get very passionate about competition and wanting to win and pushing myself first and foremost, and then pushing, the people around me. So I have been very fortunate through my journey in this side of racing and engineering and being a potential crew chief. I've had good leaders around me from really the first NASCAR opportunity I had as an engineer was at RAB Racing, and our crew chief was Scott Zipadelli. Kenny Wallace was our driver. Scott Zipadelli and I got to know each other really well, and he always had a very calm demeanor on the radio and the way he would lead his guys. So that was a good example for me early on. And then, as my career developed, I got to work for some really good folks at Stewart Haas, Steve Addington, Chad Johnston, got to be around Greg Zipadelli a lot, and some other good leaders there. Then here at Hendrick Motorsports, I've gotten to work under Chad Knaus for 4 or 5 years. I've got to be around Alan Gustafson a lot. I've got to be around Jeff Andrews a lot, Jeff Gordon a lot, and of course, Mr. H himself. So there's been a lot of good influences on me. And I'll be honest, I've had to learn some tough lessons along the way of maybe being a bit too, just energetic or snappy with, just my natural energy and passion for competition. That all those people along the way have really helped me understand how to do exactly what you said, which is see the big picture, know how to manage the people around you, a lot of different situations or circumstances happening all at once. It's still okay to have the passion. It's still okay to have the energy, but exerting that in the right situations and in the right moments to help lead, a team and to lead Kyle. If it weren't for all those things that happened along my journey, I know that, races like the Roval where, folks have really talked about how great of a job our team did. To me in that moment, all the credit goes to our car chief, Jesse, and our tuner, Steven, who did all the work on the car. And I think, our team having a common sense of racing knowledge, a common sense of urgency for what needed to be done in that moment. Everybody knew we had to be calm, but still buckle down and get the job done. Produced the fix, produced the result that we had that day. So really, I can't even take credit for that. But all those things along the way have gotten me here, and I think have gotten our team to the point that we are right now.
Cliff, before I let you go, and I do thank you for taking a little bit of time out of a very, very busy schedule. Look, I covered auto racing for many, many years, but also the world of college football. And every time that I would go in to a successful coach's office, his bookcase would be filled with books on leadership and motivation. So my question to you is, what's on your bookshelf?
So it's interesting. I have a lot of John Maxwell books. I have some Max Lucado books, the Joe Gibbs books that he's written over the years. I've read all those. There's a lot that I study in scripture as well. And with my Christian faith, there's daily devotionals that I read. And there's some good podcasts and stuff that I listen to. My bookshelf at home, and there's a John F. Kennedy book that I read. It's probably been 6 or 8 years ago when I read that. I think the book is Profiles in Courage by John Kennedy. There's a lot of books that I've kind of read over the years, and now that you bring it up, I probably need to go revisit. But I've always, been interested in learning from some of the wisest minds in leadership, and I've certainly had a lot of growing pains in my journey in that. But it's been fun along the way, and fun to read and fun to do.
Well, this has been fun to visit with you, and I do appreciate it. I'll leave you though. You mentioned Scott Zipadelli, and you alluded to the fact that he's calm, cool, and collected. Might want to remind you, I go back for both Zippy and Scott. He wasn't so calm, cool, and collected when my tech inspector at my local racetrack discovered that he had used illegal hubs on his race car and disqualified him from the winner's circle. He can get a little animated when he needs to, trust me.
He can. I've seen him get animated, but he was always good on the radio, which is the question you asked. So yes, he was always good on the radio.
Hey, yep. Cliff, continued good success, and thanks so much for sharing a little bit of what goes into being a true leader in the world of NASCAR Cup Series competition.
No problem. And thank you again for having me. Hope to talk soon.